It's great to have you with us. This is the Saints and Savages podcast, and we have another great show for you today. And as always, we're bringing receipts. My name is Brian. With me, Mike, Lord Norris, and Blake, the Mad Professor. But first, if you like the show, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, share the show with a friend. Share us with a couple friends if you're into that kind of thing. I know we are. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Saints and Savages, welcome to the show. Mike, what do we got today?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's been a long week. It's good to see you, Blake, and Mr. Ron Swanson again, as always.
Ron, yeah, forgot
to always got to introduce our role model in life. We got a packed show for you guys today. It's been an interesting week.
Is it just me, or does it feel like it's only a week since we film, and it feels like at least 3?
Yeah, I feel like it's been like a quarter of a year that's already passed because there's just so much crap that's flying around. Like,
days
we're in a monkey
longer,
circus.
Days feel longer than weeks. Time is so compressed and weird when you're busy. And
it's the 24-hour news cycle, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It freaking sucks.
Speaking of crap.
Yeah, well, as you guys might have known, people spend a lot of money on garbage. In this week's episode, we will talk about a certain thing that people spend a lot of money on, predominantly women, but not necessarily now in this day and age. It is also the age of sneakers, and there are some horrendous sneakers that have been for sale lately. None more so than our first
the winners
than the winner of this year's sneaker. Horrible sneakers, and that would be this one. This is from Uncrate, and Brian, you wanna give us a little explanation on this?
Yeah, so these are the Balenciaga Paris sneakers. They are distressed, and they go beyond distressed, and they go straight for destroyed.
This looks like this passed through the digestive system of a T-Rex.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, this. It looks like somebody got eaten, and somebody shat this thing out.
So you know when you play survival games and you're trying to find gear? This is like the pair of shoes you find under a dumpster.
Yes. It's like the level -1 gear.
Or it's like the super legendary item that's just like looks like garbage, and you're just like, I don't even want to wear this.
Yeah, so these limited edition version of its new silhouette comes aged with decades worth of wear, to say the least, featuring holes, scuffs, and tears. All that damage comes extra with the shoes boasting a price of $1,820.
Oh my gosh.
And they're just limited to 100 pairs, which I hope none of them sell.
I don't want to pay that kind of money for something that I can smell while looking at it.
Or that you can go to Goodwill and find for free.
I just don't understand, dude. I really don't. Like, how do people like spend so much money on this?
So, okay, we're all there in age, right? 80s and 90s, right? I remember when I ripped my jeans, the knees of my jeans, and my dad beat my ass. And then it was like 10 years later, it was like the cool thing to have like ripped jeans.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting like progressively worse. First, it was the ripped holes just in the knees. And then they came out like rips above and below. And then when I was teaching, a student walked in. There was like a rip every 3 or 4 inches on these jeans. I thought, those are some holy jeans. I couldn't. That's the style.
No, but it's true, dude. Back in the day, like if you, like I remember, you'd get brand new clothes, and obviously as a kid, you're just like rolling around on the dirt and everything. And so they like you think would break, and your parents would be like, "Really? I just bought that for you."
Oh no,
right?
Yeah. Or Christmas comes around.
Yeah.
I grew up poor, man.
Yeah.
Like whatever you got for Christmas, you got to make it last, because that was all you were getting until next Christmas. So my brother and I would sit around and try to sit there and think about. It's like, all right, what can we get that's going to last for the rest of the year? Not only that, but summer and winter.
Right. Multi-seasonal, like tires.
Yeah. It's like every once in a while, Nana would get you some socks or some underwear, which you were always mad about, but at the same time, you were kind of like, oh, I kind of need those.
By the end of that year, there were toeless socks.
Oh my gosh, man!
And then when you're an adult, what do you want for your birthday? I need some socks, really bad.
So there's a YouTube video where they kind of make fun of this. It's from College Humor. They always have some pretty funny stuff. So
this is the most recent one. I've seen previous ones where they're just hilarious as well. But yeah, like the thing that these people wear is really fun. We'll go ahead and play this for you guys.
Just to let you know, they're earmuffs. There's going to be a little bit of adult language in here, but hey,
We need that
selective hearing.
Yeah.
We need that warning at the beginning.
This is where the savage part comes into the show.
Exactly. All right, here we go. Oh, that was a much needed.
Yes, we've all seen that style come around, and I can't wait for it to go. So,
Oh my gosh, it's so epic.
I think the most irritating one that I've noticed when I was in college, I don't think I see it as much anymore, was the tight jeans on men specifically. And
those tight skinny jeans.
yeah,
Yeah.
You'd see a guy, he's like, easily 300 something pounds, and he's got on some skinny jeans, and I'm like,
Like,
bro.
dude, you're never gonna have kids.
yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts, man?
Fat guys in skinny jeans look like they're going for the muffin top look. The ending of that was the greatest. The homeless guy's like, they're dressed like me. I thought we were all going to a shelter.
Oh man, this is literally just what our culture has come to, though. Like, this is, I mean, people buying like ripped up jeans, people buying ripped up sneakers.
Yeah, you want the already pre-worn distressed look. It's like, why?
Have you seen them be made in like China or like Thailand or wherever they make them? There's like a perfectly good pair of jeans, and they literally get like sandpaper, and that's how they distress them.
Really?
And they'll like cut them or just sandpaper them until they get like the desired look that they want.
I would actually like to see somebody do like a case study of finding some jeans at Goodwill, like some pretty like jacked up jeans or something like that, or even just outside behind a dumpster somewhere, and then like actually sell them for like $1,000 and see if you can sell them.
or do like a case study where like you interview like really poor people like in Africa or something, and then show them pictures of what people are wearing. That like, can you imagine somebody's like doesn't even have a shirt, and like they see like a chick just wearing like ripped up crop top or something? It's like, what?
Oh,
anyways.
well, we're gonna go from one garbage to some more garbage. So
Well, that's enough of your white privilege over there. Let's go ahead and get into some serious topics here. Unfortunately, we had some couple tragedies in the last couple days.
Yep.
A lot of shootings have been going on.
Yep.
Not the fault of legal gun owners whatsoever.
no, this is the fault of a trash of a human being.
Yep, absolutely. So you're the one that got us this article, Brian. You want to jump into it?
This whole article actually comes from Mr. Greenwald. If you don't know who he is, you need to follow him on his Substack. He has great insight. He is not of the right. He is not a conservative. He is a liberal.
Yep.
He has voted Democrat his entire life, and I only say that to preface what he's about to say in this article, right? So we're going to start reading through this. So it says the demand in selective game,
Demented.
I can't read today.
Demented.
The demented and selective game of instantly blaming political opponents for mass shootings, right?
Yep.
So all ideologies spawn psychopaths who kill innocents in its name, yet only some are blamed for their violent adherence. By opportunists cravenly exploiting corpses while they still lie on the ground. Megyn Kelly actually talked about this on her show too. She's all like, these people, they just died. It's like, can we please mourn them first before we start pointing fingers at stuff? That's So, but everybody's got to take advantage of an opportunity like this, and instead of letting these families grieve, and instead of coming together and trying to support the community and support the family,
It's just politicized instead, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go back in time a little bit. At a softball field in Washington, D.C. suburb, on June 14, 2017, a lone gunman used a rifle, indiscriminately sprayed bullets at members of the House GOP who were gathered for a usual Saturday morning practice for an upcoming charity game. I cannot read today, so pardon me for messing up some stuff. The then House Majority Whip, Representative Stephen Scalise, was shot in the hip while standing on second base and almost died. Spending 6 weeks in the hospital undergoing multiple surgeries, 4 other people were shot, including 2 members of the Capitol Police, who were part of Scalise's security detail, a GOP staffer and a Tyson's food lobbyist. He was hunting us at that point, said Mike Bishop, who attempted to murder as many people as he could while standing with his rifle behind the dugout. The shooter died after engaging the police in a shootout. He was, I'm not going to say his name, a 66-year-old hardcore Democrat who, less than 6 months into the Trump presidency, had sought to kill GOP lawmakers based on this belief that Republicans are corrupt terrorists, fascists, and Kremlin agents. The writings he left behind permitted little doubt that he was driven to kill by the relentless messaging he heard from his favorite cable host, MSNBC's Rachel Maddow, and other anti-Trump pundits about his evils of the GOP. Indeed, immediately after arriving at the softball field, he asked several witnesses whether the people gathered were Republicans or Democrats. A CNN examination of his life revealed that Hodgkin's online presence was largely defined by his politics. In particular, his public Facebook posts dated back to 2012 and are nearly all about his political or his support for liberal politics. He was particularly passionate about tax hikes on the rich and universal health care. NBC News explained that when he got angry about politics, it was often directed against Republicans, and acknowledged that Hopkins said this favorite TV program was The Rachel Maddow Show on MSNBC. Indeed, his media diet was nonstop barrage of vehement animosity towards Republicans. His favorite television shows were listed as Real Time with Bill Maher, who's actually coming around a lot, which is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, either that or he's just grifting for attention, dude.
No, I actually
You think he's getting red-pilled?
No, I think he's logical.
Yeah,
I think he's logical.
I think his logic has been consistent throughout. You know, I don't think it's necessarily he's changed. He just has been kept his opinions, while some people have become more radical.
See, I just feel like either he got red pilled at certain point because I don't think so, because his narrative just like completely flipped.
Well,
I think he's still the same person. It's just that
I don't know, man. It doesn't seem that way.
It's the shift. It's the Overton window shift, though.
It could be. Yeah, you're right about that. It could be that.
He is still like super vehemently anti-Trump. Like he thinks Trump is the worst person ever. But
that's fine, though.
But I mean, but setting that aside, though, you know what I mean? Like it's just, I don't know. It just seems a little weird to me. But maybe I've had him portrayed in a certain light for such a long time that I just can't see him anything else. But anyways,
all right. So we'll keep going. So his favorite television shows were listed as Real Time with Bill Maher, The Rachel Maddow Show, Democracy Now!, and other left-leaning programs. On the Senate floor, Senator Bernie Sanders divulged that Hodgkins was an apparent supporter of his and had even apparently volunteered for his campaign. A Sanders supporter told the Washington Post he campaigned for Bernie Sanders with Hodgkins in Iowa. The mass shooter had a particular fondness for Maddow's nightly MSNBC show. In his many less letters the editor sent to the Bellevue News Democrat, reported New York Magazine, he expressed support for President Obama and declared his love for the Rachel Maddow Show. In one letter, he heralded Maddow's nightly program as one of my favorite TV shows. While consuming this strident and increasingly rage-driven Trump-era anti-GOP media diet, Hodgkins joined several anti-GOP Facebook groups, including Terminate the Republican Party, The Road to Hell is Paved with Republicans, and Join the Resistance Worldwide. Two of his consuming beliefs were that Trump-era Republicans were traitors in the United States and fascist white nationalists. In 2015, he had posted a cartoon depicting Scalise, the man he came very close to murdering, as speaking at a gathering of the KKK. Once Trump was inaugurated in early 2017, the mass shooter online messaging became increasingly mirroring the more extreme anti-Trump and anti-GOP voices that did not just condemn the GOP's ideology, but depicted them as grave threats to the republic. In March 22, Facebook post Hodgkins wrote, "Trump is a traitor. Trump has destroyed our democracy. It's time to destroy Trump and company." In February, he posted Republicans are the Taliban of the USA. In one Facebook post, just days before his shooting spree, Hodgkins wrote, "I want to say, Mr. President, for being an a-hole, you are truly the biggest a-hole we have ever had in the Oval Office." And NBC News put it, Hodgkins' Facebook posting portrayed him as stridently anti-Republican and anti-Trump. Despite this fact that Hodgkins was a fanatical fan of Maddow, Democracy Now! Host Amy Godman, and Sanders, the idea and ideologies motivating his shooting spree perfectly matched and were likely shaped by liberals of that cohort, and that enemies whom he sought to kill were also enemies of Maddow and her liberal comrades. Nobody rationally or decent sought to blame the MSNBC host, the Vermont senator, or anyone else whose political views matched Hodgkins for the grotesque violence he unleashed. And I remember that. Everybody came out and nobody said this is Maddow's fault. It was not her fault. Yeah. It was not Bernie Sanders' fault.
No.
At all.
Yep.
This guy was a freak. This guy was a psychopath.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's just funny because like when a certain side's actions affect the other ones, like they usually go to blame. Oh, like if he was a Trump supporter, blah blah blah. You know that's all they would talk about. Mm-hmm. But when it's the other side, man, like the Republicans. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't ever do it, but they don't do it to this degree, right? They're not like they're not saying like, hey, Maddow, this is your fault. You radicalized them. You know, it's your fault that Scalise got shot or anything like that. So
no, again, Megyn Kelly was playing every clip from ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, you name it,
Yep.
playing all the clips of everybody, of course, going after one person, right? One news channel. They're going after Fox News and going after Tucker Carlson. We'll get to that in a little bit. So, and again, this was literally hours after these poor people were killed. Didn't name a single name of the person that was killed, any of the people that were killed, but immediately went to go blame instead of saying, hey, these are the people that were shot. These were their lives. Let's celebrate who they were. Let's mourn their loss. Let's talk to the families. Let's see who these people actually were, right? Can't even humanize these people, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're the left, the radical left. Also, it just seems like more and more every day they're just pushing more for violence, right? Or advocating and encouraging, the rise to violence. Like what was her name? She congressman from California, from Los Angeles.
The what? What? Say it again?
During the Kenosha trial for Kyle Rittenhouse, the congresswoman, she was like saying, like, if we don't get the outcome we want, then it's like, oh no, it's for the George Floyd. She said, well,
Maxine?
like, Maxine Waters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. She was.
Well, Maxine's called to action several times.
Yep.
And she never gets busted on it.
Never.
They never censor her. Nothing. They always let her say this stuff. But
anybody else, violent calls to actions too.
And even the judge had to comment on it. He's like, you probably have grounds because the freaking congresswoman said this for an appeal. Like, if the judge has actually even comments on it, then it's like completely egregious on it, right? So.
All right, so we'll keep going. The reason for this is clear and indisputable. As strident and extremist as he is, Maddow has never once encouraged any of her followers to engage in violence to advance her ideology, nor has she even hinted that a mass murderer of the Republican traitors, fascists, or the Kremlin agents in whom she rants on a nightly basis to millions of people is just solution. It would be madness to try to assign moral or political blame to them. He's correct. If we were to create a framework in which prominent people were held responsible for any violence carried out in the name of an ideology they advocate, then nobody would be safe. Given that all the ideologies have their misfits, psychopaths, unhinged personality types, and extremists, and thus there was little to no attempt to hold Maddow or Sanders personally responsible for the violent acts of one of their most loyal adherents. Do you also remember Senator the doctor, son of the previous senator, big libertarian,
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul. His neighbor beat the crap out of him in his yard, broke his ribs, sent him to the hospital. Right, I think he's in jail right now.
I think he's in jail.
Yeah, and same thing. They looked at his past. Right, he's a big leftist. But the thing is like nobody's blaming what he's watching. He was responsible for his actions. Right.
Yeah, that's agency, right?
Yeah.
You're responsible for what you do, what you say.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the outcomes that happen because of that stuff.
Now, and that's not to separate that if somebody calls something to action, which is completely different, right? Which, again, what he is supporting in here, Rachel Maddow, nor Bernie Sanders ever did. Okay? The same is true of the spate of mass shootings and killings by self-described black nationalists over the last several years. Back in 2007, left-wing group Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, warned of the return of the violent black nationalist. In one incident, Micaiah Xavier Johnson ambushed Dallas police officers during a peaceful protest against police brutality, killing 5 officers and wounding 9 others. Then, 10 days later, Gavin Eugene Long shot 6 officers, killing 3 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They shared the same ideology, and one drove the murderous spree. Both Johnson and Long were reportedly motivated by their strong dislike of law enforcement, grievances against perceived white dominance, and the recent fatal police shootings of unarmed black men under questionable circumstances, specifically the shooting deaths of Alton Sterling of Baton Rouge and Philando Castile in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. Needless to say, the ideas that motivated these 2 black nationalists to murder multiple people, including police officers, is part of a core ideology that is commonly heard in mainstream media versus expressed by many of those in most of the nation's most prominent liberals. Depicting the police as white supremacist force eager to kill black people, grievances against perceived white dominance, and anger over the white supremacist epidemic in America's system of governance from the country's founding are views that one routinely hears on MSNBC, CNN, and the Democratic Party politics, and in op-ed pages of the New York Times and the Washington Post. Yet virtually nobody sought to blame Chris Hayes, Joy Reid, Nancy Pelosi, James Bowie, or the New York Times op-ed writers for these shooting sprees. Indeed, no blame was assigned to anti-police liberal pundits whose views of American history is exactly the same as that of those 2 killers. even though they purposely sought to murder the same enemies whom those prominent liberals targeted. Nobody blamed those anti-police liberals for the same reason. They did not blame Maddow and Sanders for Hodgkin's shooting spree. There is a fundamental and necessary distinction between people who use words to express ideas and demonize perceived enemies, and those who decide to go randomly and indiscriminately murder in the name of that ideology.
Ideas could be violence nowadays.
Yeah, I'm seeing things that stick out here. There's a fantastic book called The Anatomy of Peace. It goes over how Father is trying to understand his conflict resolution, how he sees himself, how he sees others, both in his family and at work. He's unable to make connections with people because he views everyone as an enemy. And I'm seeing this like, they're the enemy. We have to go what's right. They're the enemy. Everything they say is wrong. Not only everything they say is wrong, everything they say is evil. Any sort of belief or a practice that associates that it's us versus them and nothing they say is related to us, you're getting to the point where you're going to hate them, and everything, you only have this confirmation bias where everything you believe about them is wrong, and it motivates you to this kind of violence. And it doesn't see the person across the aisle as someone who has their hopes, dreams, and fears as you do. We've talked about on the show, Republican, Democrat, you get them together. They care about families. They care about their jobs. They care about putting food on the table. We have more in common than we have what's different. And it's amazing to see these kind of people only listen to one side for so long that they grow to demonize, actually view the other people as spawns from hell that have to be eliminated. And getting to that point just makes everything worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're so right. I think it creates what's known as tribalism, right? Yeah. One side against the other. And no matter what, like my tribe has to beat your tribe if I want to succeed in life and survive, right? That comes back down to the natural man in each of us, right? We're all trying to exude dominance over somebody else so that, our line, our family, ourselves can get ahead in life. But again, like I think you're right. Like I think people just become so polarized that they forget that we have a lot more in common together than we have, differences.
See, when I was growing up, I remember always being told, it's like you can't sit there and, point somebody out because of the color of their skin or because of their religious beliefs or because of any of that. It was based off what Martin Luther King said, right? And what you're seeing now is that tribalism now. Now you have to. Now you're racist if you don't point out somebody's race, if you don't point out their gender, if you don't point out their sexual orientation. You're wrong for that now. Whereas 20 years ago, if you did that, shame on you.
Yeah, not only are you wrong, you need to be destroyed and erased from the public square sphere, right? And oh crap, what was I gonna say? Also, I totally just lost my train of thought.
I'm going to let you hang there for a second. No, I'm just kidding.
Back to you, Brian. Sorry, I know you had something to say. But
I was thinking of getting along the lines of a virtue lived life. Mm-hmm. When did saying, oh, I'm gay, that's like a virtue. Like when they make characters in comic books or movies, oh, I'm non-binary. Like that's their personality. I understand that's something that's part of your identity, but that is not a virtue. That doesn't make you any less of a person or any more of a person. That's just your orientation. Like, are you patient? Are you
a good person?
Are you charitable? Do you have problems with conflict? Like, these are things that are part of your personality. A gay person has personality all across the board. That in of itself is not a virtue.
Yeah. I remember what I was going to say. Even when you have differences of opinion and thoughts, even when you agree with the other side nowadays about something that they're talking about, a certain topic or an opinion, when you agree with them, they turn around and say, "Oh, you're a bigot." You can't be right with agreeing with them now because they just cannot see you on their side for whatever reason. Because again, it becomes everything's so polarized and tribal nowadays.
Well, that's like what you're seeing now too. Is with this. It's not necessarily a new cry, but it's been out there, and it's generally it's like we have to shut down speech. There's that hate speech, right? It's like, no, there's freedom of speech or there is not freedom of speech. And you want to see what happens when you remove freedom of speech? You look at countries like Venezuela. You look what happened in Russia. You look what happened in Germany. The moment Hitler was put into office, they shut off the radio stations immediately.
Yeah. Nazism does not flourish in a society of free speech. He had to restrict free speech in order to win.
Yeah, your feelings don't get to dictate like what I say. You know, it's like,
Or how I live my life.
Yeah,
it's my life. It's not. Yeah.
Because if we start going down this road of hate speech, you know what they're going to come after? Religion, right? Because you know how many things you could sit there and point out to in religious texts that they could sit there and say, well, that's hate speech.
Well, I mean, the whole tenet of the United States is based on a morally just society, based on Judeo-Christian beliefs.
Yeah.
Right, so like that's the last bastion of really of free will and you know freedom. Once they go after religion and Judeo-Christian beliefs, I mean that's really it. You know, there's nothing after that. After that, it just becomes Mad Max, right? Anything goes. Anything will. Whoever has the power will dictate what happens in the public sphere.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying this stuff like reading this stuff because I'm attacking anybody who's on the left or even the right. What this is pointing out is the ignorance of a lot of people to not do your own homework or to even wait until all the evidence comes out, right? Because guess what? The story that we're talking about, this guy wrote a manifesto, and I don't have it on here, but his manifesto, he does not like the Republican Party. Obviously, did not like Trump. But what are they calling him? Did you see that Rolling Stone article?
Which one?
So I can't remember her name, but years ago she wrote about a Border Patrol agent who had a neo-Nazi tattoo on his arm. It was not a neo-Nazi tattoo. It was a tattoo of his unit from his army unit, right? So then, of course, I forget what news agency she was in. They fired her. So she's at the Rolling Stone now, and she just wrote an article saying that this guy, basically he's a terrorist Republican. And I'm hoping she gets fired again, because even if she said he's a terrorist Democrat, same thing. He did not identify as
because she was fired from her previous job because of a fact. He could sue for slander and prove it easily.
Yeah. Well, I'm not defending this. Don't get me wrong.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, these are the facts, though, right? Like, you were wrong. You were fired because of it. Now you're still, like, beating a dead horse about it?
But you're saying you're a journalist and you can't even do basic journalistic,
Hold on. This is Rolling Stone's journalism.
Yeah, I know.
This is like... You see Steven Crowder destroy that other Rolling Stone journalist?
Well, the thing, it's like Rolling Stone, stick to music, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like the whole gaming industry now. All the gaming industry is becoming political. You saw that whole thing with Frost. It was like, please stop.
Yeah.
Just stick to what you know. If you're in gaming, you stick to gaming. Stay out of politics. If you're in politics, you stick to politics, but stick to the facts no matter what.
Mm-hmm. The bar of standard at Rolling Stone is down in the Marianas Trench.
Agreed.
All right. So, where are we at here?
Paragraph.
Yeah. Since 2017, warning from the SPLC, there have been many more murders in the name of this anti-police and anti-white supremacist ideology of black nationalism. In June of last year, the ADL said it had linked Othel Torian Rasheen Wallace, the man arrested and accused of fatally shooting Dayton Beach officer Jason Rayner on June 23rd, to several extremist groups preaching black nationalism. He had participated in several events organized by the NFAC. Oh, you remember them, right?
Oh yeah, they want Texas.
the No Effing Around Club.
No effing around. No.
That was the guy. He had the rifle. And
he's the guy that says that if you slam the butt of an AR-15, it could blow somebody's head off.
Oh, the thing was, everybody was supporting like gun. Like,
they were like, oh my gosh,
cool. You should absolutely go out there, because gun control has always been to take guns away from minorities. It's always been that way, and do your research.
Yep.
Well, this guy understood that. Granted, he was wrong on a lot of other things, but he understood this. So I give him credit on that aspect. They should have practiced a little bit more trigger discipline, since a couple people shot themselves.
Oh my god! Like it just every week, it was like at a knee protest, one of the members shoots himself again.
Yeah. But nobody.
But you know who rendered aid? It was the ones they were protesting against.
Yeah. well, the thing is like, you're protesting against them, but they weren't protesting against you being able to be out there with the gun. In fact, they were supporting you being out there with a gun. All right. So NFAC, best known for holding armed marches protesting radical inequality and
racial inequality.
I'm sorry. Again, I cannot read. And police brutality. He had a long history of siding and following prominent radical black anti-police and anti-white ideologues. Also in June of last year, a 25-year-old man named Noah Green drove a car into a Capitol police officer, killing him instantly. I remember that, and they memory hold it really quick. The New York Times reported that he follows black nationalist groups, while a former college teammate recalled that Mr. Green would often talk to fellow players about strategies to save and invest, emphasizing the need to close the wealth gap between white and black America. Okay. Just last month, a self-identified black nationalist named Frank James went on a terrifying shooting spree in New York City's subway system that injured dozens. He had protested material on social media linked to black identity extremist ideologies, including the Nation of Islam, Black Panthers, Black Liberation Army, BLM, and an image of black nationalist cop killer Micaiah Johnson. Adji Sparks, the brilliant writer who voices the audio version of the articles for this Substack, reported in Newsweek that James had posted prolifically on social media and hosted a YouTube channel where he expressed black nationalist leanings and racial grievances. In 2019, the New York Times reported that an assailant involved in the prolonged firefight in Jersey City, New Jersey, left 6 people dead, including 1 police officer, was linked on Wednesday to the Black Hebrew Israelite movement and had a written anti-police protest. Most media outlets and liberal politicians correctly refused to assign blame to pundits and politicians who spewed anti-police rhetoric, as they should, or who insisted that the U.S. is a nation of white supremacy. The animating ideas of those murderers, yet in these cases, they go much further with their denialism. Many deny this ideology even exists at all. If you remember when this guy went into the subway shooting everything, it's with most cases. If it leads, it bleeds, right? There's a certain leaning that for the media, it's very important for them that these things match. Now, if you remember, there was another shooting the same weekend. It was at a church. Okay. Do you remember? In California.
Oh, a California church. That's right.
Do you know what the ethnicity of the church members were?
White?
No.
No, I think they were all black.
They were Taiwanese.
All Taiwanese.
Do you know what the ethnicity of the shooter was?
Chinese.
He was Chinese. They immediately talked about it when it came out because these two things happened back to back. But as soon as they found out that the shooter was Chinese, they killed the story.
They just dropped it. Yep.
Yeah. I'm reminded of what Samuel Clemens, pen name Mark Twain, said. If you don't read the news, you are uninformed. If you do read the news, you are misinformed.
Yeah.
That they have kind of this, the news wants a particular belief system to be happening in people's minds for money, to boast certain ideologies. Like if you think about gun crime, it comes from mass shootings committed by rifles. Rifles commit less than 3%. Less than 3%. Hammers and shovels kill more people than rifles.
Fists and feet kill more people than rifles.
Yeah. The true gun problem is between gang violence with pistols, but we don't cover gang violence with pistols ever in the news media. Mm-hmm. And that's where the majority of gun deaths happen. If you want to clean up those, you got to clean up gang violence in inner cities and change inner city policies.
Well, this is okay. I'm going to lay blame where blame is due. This is the media fanning the flame of derision. Mm-hmm. They have to, because they are dying on the vine, because they provide absolutely no other substance whatsoever. The trust in the media right now is at an all-time low. Yeah. People distrust the media, and they are vehemently opposed to most of the stuff they're saying.
And it's not like they're trying to reach a broader spectrum of viewers, right? They have like their very core, almost religious, fans that always watch them, mm-hmm. and those are the people that they're catering to these stories, right? They don't, at this point, they know that they're going to lose, and that they're just trying to cash as much as they can in the meantime with stories like these, right? It leads me to like the guy who ran over a bunch of people in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Waukesha, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, that was completely.
It was an SUV.
And they're like, oh, he took a wrong turn. Like, no. He went straight for these people, and the story got swept under the rug as much as the right was trying to prop up the story and be like, hey, like this stuff also happens. And I think Peter Doocy actually just asked the new press secretary. He's like, hey, how come Biden is going to Buffalo for this recent shooting that just happened, but he never visited any of the Waukesha in Wisconsin families, so it's because, again, like how you said, if it leads, it bleeds, right?
Well, he's also losing the polls, and he has to do something to brace up his support, which isn't going to matter. It's not going to matter. He's losing black support.
Yeah.
You see, I've seen countless interviews of these people going into inner cities, interviewing black folks, and they are like, we want Trump back. I'm not saying necessarily we have to have Trump. Like, if it came down to it, if it was like Trump or what's his name in Florida,
DeSantis.
I would go for DeSantis. You know, but don't get me wrong. What they're trying to say is that they don't have trust in Biden. Now, getting back to what you said about what Peter Ducey asked about him going to visit, I don't want him to go to visit any of these things because one is he takes away the focus of what's going on there with the families, okay? And then the other one is he takes away police support and whatnot, so the police could be out there doing investigations, doing whatever. You pull that. That was one of the big things that they gave a lot of crap to Bush too, because remember during Katrina he didn't go, he flew over.
Yep.
Granted, it was bad optics. It is what it is. But
I mean, it was also almost like a war zone.
No, exactly. What they asked Dana Perino later on, they go, well, "Why didn't he go?" And she was like, "Because he didn't want to pull away resources that were badly needed in that area."
Yeah.
And so
I
don't like politicians going to areas to do these things. It's like let the areas take care of these things. Don't go there to capitalize on a political movement. It's like allow these people to mourn or whatever. You can make a statement on TV. People are still not gonna watch you because they don't right now. But it's like you're just going out there because you're sinking in the polls. The economy is doing terrible. People are overrunning the border. You got your butt handed to you in Afghanistan. And now
closing more oil pipelines.
Yeah, so it's like you're just trying to capitalize because you're losing the polls, and there's about to be a massive red wave. And in fact, Mike, a lot of Hispanics, how are they voting now?
Latinos para Trump.
No,
but seriously,
they did a poll, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's 50-50.
I mean, when Trump won in his previous election, he polled higher in the Latino and Black communities than any GOP candidate before that, by far. Yeah. And I think even this last election where he lost, he still polled extremely high in those communities. When this the red wave hits, man, the numbers are going to be absolutely astronomically, shocking to especially the left, which has technically always been the party of for Latinos and minority communities like the Black community. So
I think they're getting sick of Democratic policies in inner cities. You think of LA, Chicago, Detroit, worst places for minorities, and Democrats are in control of the executive and legislative branches in a lot of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, speaking for the Latino community, I don't know how much I can speak for them, but for Latino myself, like I think the Latino community is just so fed up with the left's inability to actually help them in whatever in the things that they have said that they're going to help them for like the last 50 years, right? Mm-hmm. Immigration, better housing, equal pay, things like that. Like things that they every single election season they say, oh, we're this is going to be like the first item on the agenda, and then they absolutely just ignore the Latino community once they're in office, right? But they're just there for their votes. They're just completely ignored whatsoever.
Oh, it's we're gonna use you for your votes, and we're gonna throw you
gaslighting to the extreme, and I do not understand why the Latino community keeps on believing in this and is just completely like just brainwashed into believing the Democratic side about this.
What triggered you to go from a California Democrat to becoming conservative?
I mean, I think my big like red pill awakening moment was like right before the pandemic, right? Like leading up to that. I mean, when I was living up in New York City when Trump was elected president, everybody was like, "No."
I remember you didn't like Trump, dude.
Yeah, man. I was just like, I to this day, I'm not the biggest Trump fan, but I recognize that the country was in 100% way better shape than it is now under the new regime, But I remember living in New York City, man, and seeing Trump get elected, and everybody was like completely shocked, and we're like, oh man, this is gonna be really bad, right? And I remember just nothing bad happened. I was like, there's no wars happening, The economy's doing really well. I'm making good money, Nothing crazy is going on, and I remember I started seeing like the news clippings and just how like fiendish and crazy they were going over Trump. Everything was about Trump, right? Yeah. Like, oh, look at the color tie he wore, or like he didn't wear a tie today, or something like that. I'm just like, how is this relevant to like the national news? Because that's kind of when I started really paying attention to the news. And then when I moved down here to the DC metro area, I was just like, I mean, it's all garbage, man. I look back on my life, I'm like, Democrats have done nothing for the Latino community whatsoever. And obviously being, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, my religious beliefs just really align more with conservative views and things like that. So,
yeah, but we still have members of the church that
oh, I know. I have really close friends that I see them post things. I'm just like, that just completely goes against, church views.
You're for abortion. But the church is not for abortion.
Exactly. Or forced inoculations of vaccines. I'm like, that comes down to personal choice, right? Agency. Everyone has agency to choose. You shouldn't be forced to do that stuff.
I think another big divide among members of church and people who maybe have more liberal leanings is social policies. Gotta have some sort of safety net. Gotta have some sort of thing to give people when they need it. Which I can understand that to a point, but where the government does a bad job of determining who really needs it. And as members of the church, we're much more towards self-reliance. And it seems kind of odd to be like, hey, just take these all away and give people the teachings and the tools they need to be self-reliant. Don't give free handouts. Be like, well, that's just harsh. That's not going to work. But it turns out to be much more productive than just giving free handouts.
But it's also not like, the members of the church and the church itself is like, doesn't do, charity work and humanitarian work. Like we give a lot of money and resources and help to, struggling communities, to countries that are in need. Whatever.
Well, you remember the tsunami in the Philippines? Mm-hmm. There's only 2 organizations the Philippines gave credit to that they said fulfilled their obligation, and they said one was the United States Navy and 2 was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They said there's only 2 organizations that fulfilled their obligation that stayed from beginning to end.
Yeah,
anyway, I'm not going to. Yeah. Let's finish this up. You're going to go down a little bit. Go down to be sure there have been a large number. I should go down a little bit.
I got it.
To be sure, there have been a large number of murders and other atrocities carried out in the U.S. and the West generally in the name of right-wing ideologies, in the name of white supremacy, in the name of white nationalism. The difference, though, is glaring. When murders are carried out in the name of liberal ideology, there is a rational and restrained refusal to blame liberal pundits and politicians who advocate the ideology that animated those killings. Yet when killings are carried out in the name of right-wing ideologies despised by corporate press and mainstream pundits, or ideologies that they falsely associate with conservatism, they instantly leap to lay blame at the feet of their conservative political opponents who, despite never having advocated or even implied the need for violence, are nonetheless accused of bearing guilt for the violence, often before anything is known about the killers or the motives. Mm-hmm. Saw that in remember the Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah.
Immediately, it's like this guy's out here just shooting people down, and he
shooting black people down.
Did not kill one. He's the worst white nationalist ever. He didn't kill one black person.
And I mean, till this day, I guarantee you could find people that are like, "What do you think about Kyle Rittenhouse?" Oh, he's a racist murderer, man. It's like, you know what nationality the people that died were? It's like, yeah, they were black. No, they were not.
And the court.
You could say he's anti-pedophile.
Yeah, you could.
And then the court said he had a right to defend himself. Now, you could argue whether or not, a 17-year-old kid should have been there with a gun. Those are always arguments you can have, but the court disagreed with that.
Younger children have gone to war, so.
But, I mean, no matter what.
Yeah.
Anytime there's any kind of atrocity, I always see this knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, wait until the evidence comes out. If the person is a monster, I'm going to stand with you. In this case, this guy who just killed these people in this grocery store, I stand with you. This guy was a monster. This guy was a white supremacist. This guy was a racist. 100% absolutely. He needs to go to prison. Probably should get the death penalty.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Where are we going to find differences on that? Where I disagree with is how you lay blame without first finding out what the evidence is. These people just died. Yeah. Can we let the families grieve? Can we find out who these people are? Can we do that first? Why are we instantly, all of a sudden, media got to fan the flame of derision right off the bat?
I mean, it's again like what I was saying, right? Even if you agree with the radical left about this issue, they're like, oh, you're just again being, just being a grifter and things like that. So again, it's a no-win situation, and that I don't know a way to that we move forward from that. And bridge that division.
So go down a little bit. Go down to this principle is not only a jurisprudence. So this principle is not only a jurisprudential or constitutional one, it is also a rational one. Those who express ideas without advocating violence are not and cannot fairly be held responsible for those who decide to pick up arms in the name of those ideas, even if, as in the names of James Hodgkins, we know for certain that the murderer listened closely to and was influenced by people like Rachel Maddow and Bernie Sanders. In such cases, we understand that this is madness and deeply unfair to exploit heinous murders to lay blame for the violence and killings on the doorsteps of our political adversaries. But when a revolting murder spree is carried out in the name of right-wing ideas or ideas perceived by the corporate press to be right-wing ideas, Everything changes instantly and completely in such cases, often before anything is known about the murderer. Indeed, literally before the corpses are even removed from the ground where they lie. There is a coordinated effort to declare that anyone who holds any views in common with the murderer has blood on their hands and is essentially a co-conspirator in the massacre. I seem to remember hearing a lot of there's always blood on your hands for whatever happens to, Ted Cruz or whoever it may be that's on the right. There's always blood on your hands. There's blood on your hands. But like he just said, it's like, again, we don't lay blame to politicians on the left or to left-leaning journalists. We don't come out and sit there and say, well, you have blood on your hands, because that person that did that thing, that's their fault. I remember growing up in the barrios in Arizona, right? Mm-hmm. I had Hispanic kids always trying to beat my ass, right? Because I'm the only white kid, right? I don't blame the entire Hispanic community. Mm-hmm. I blame them. They were a-holes.
Again, it comes down to personal choice. People will do the craziest things in life, right? But I am not responsible for them doing atrocities, and neither should other people, that have absolutely nothing to do with it. But I guess the left sees it differently.
So this guy, he wrote a 180-page manifesto who the media has yet to read, right? Because they're saying this guy obviously is a right and he's a Republican. In the manifesto, Grandin described himself as left-wing authoritarian and a populist. On the political compass, I fall in the middle moderate authoritarian left category, and I would prefer to be called populist. He heaped praise on an article in the socialist magazine Jacobin for its views that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are fraudulent scams. He spoke passionately of the centrality and necessity of environmentalism, and lamented that the state has long since heavily lost to its corporate backers. He ranted against corporate profits and the ever-increasing wealth of the 1% that exploit the people in their own benefit. And he not only vehemently rejected any admiration for political conservatism, but made clear that he
made clear that he viewed it as an enemy to his agenda.
Correct. Conservatism is
corporatism in disguise. I want no part of it.
Good. Keep reading.
Do you need a glass of water?
Yes. Hold on. Mike, continue, please.
But by far, the overreaching and dominant theme of this worldview, the ideology that he repeatedly emphasized, was the animating cause of his murder spree, was his anger and fear that white people, which he defines as those of European descent, were being eradicated by a combination of low birth rates and mass immigration. He repeatedly self-identified as a racist. Wow. And expressed admiration for fascism as a solution. Treaties? How do you say that?
Treaties.
Borrowed heavily from and at times outright plagiarized large sections of the manifesto left behind by Brenton Tarrant, the 29-year-old Australian whom in 2018 murdered 51 people, mostly Muslim, at two mosques in New Zealand. Gendron's manifesto included a long list of websites and individuals who influenced his thinking, but made clear that it was Terrence who was his primary inspiration, other than extensive anti-Semitic sections which insisted that Jews are behind most of the world's powerful institutions and accompanying problems. It was Terrence's deep concern about what he perceived is the disappearance of white people that was also Gendron's principal cause.
So this is basically what they're saying. So we're going to get down to this, what they're attributing now, because now the information is coming out now that he is not of the right, obviously. He identifies as being on the left. He identifies
as a fascist.
Yes, right. Again, I'm not blaming the left. This is him self-identifying as this. He does not like conservatism, right? In fact, I think he even says, he goes on to say that he's glad that it's dead, right, or that, he thanks God it's dead or whatever. Yeah. But what they start attributing to is Tucker Carlson. And they say, well, there's over 400 instances where Tucker Carlson has talked about this, what is it called? Replacement theory, right? Where I don't watch Tucker Carlson, but I can easily go Google plenty of YouTube videos of him talking about he actually thinks that immigration should be easier. It should be easier for you to become a U.S. citizen. And in fact, immigrants should be taken care of. They should be protected. He's in no way is saying that whites are being replaced. Go to anywhere outside of the United States except for Europe, and you're going to be a minority if you're white. Mm-hmm. So what? Right?
With harsher immigration laws in here. So
yeah, and we've talked about this before on the show. What's white?
I mean, the left can't even answer that question, right? When you ask them that.
You have to do that because you have to create division.
Yep.
You have to say this whole group is black, this whole group is white. Thomas Sowell breaks that down. You know, he's like when you sit there and you takes a community and you sit there and you lump it into one thing where you have certain aspects of that community that don't like each other, but you're going to lump them into one thing. Hispanics, for instance, right? Everybody's Hispanic.
Tell me how well El Salvadorians and Guatemalans get along.
I mean,
or Mexicans and
Puerto
Ricans.
Puerto Ricans.
Yeah. So, but what they're gonna shift, and you're gonna see this, right? Yes, he's a racist and a white supremacist. What they're trying to do is they're trying to blame it on the right and conservatism. They're gonna find it real quick that's not true once they start reading his manifesto. They're going to shift it to two things. One is gun control, which they're already doing, and the other one is they're going to start bringing up this thing about replacement theory, whatever that means. I've never heard of this in my life until just right now. They started talking about this.
This happened in Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
No AR-15s, restricted magazine capacities, weight limits, or magazine limits. This has every single common sense gun law that they want to pass across the country, and it still didn't work.
He was caught by so he wanted to shoot a school when he was in high school. The FBI grabbed him. They let him go, right? He should have already been flagged to not be able to get a weapon of any kind whatsoever, right? These are the red flag laws, right? So what you're saying is a law that already exists, that's already on the books, wasn't being enforced. Who knew? Who knew that would happen?
In the state with the most restrictive gun laws, well, one of them.
Yeah. Oh, well, California, the same thing. This guy shot up. How did this guy get this gun? Yep. How did this guy do this?
Yep.
It's supposed to be super restrictive. Illinois, same thing, right?
Yeah, it's about control. It's not actually about safety, which is crazy.
But he's a gun. I thought lefts just hated guns.
All right, so go down here to within literally an hour. So within literally an hour of the news of this murder spree in Buffalo, far too little time for anyone to have even carefully read all or most of this guy's manifesto, and with very little known about his life or activities, much of the corporate press and liberal pundits class united to reveal the real culprit, the actual guilty party behind this murder spree. Fox News host Tucker Carlson. I don't even watch Tucker. I could care less about it, but it's like, really?
I mean, all I can do is laugh at this dude because it's just ridiculous. They've been trying to go after Tucker for so long, and it's just they're doing whatever they can.
Yeah. So immediate and unified was this guilty verdict of mob justice that Carlson's name trended all night on Twitter along with Buffalo and this guy's name. I'm not going to say his name.
A lot.
It kind of keeps on going on here. I'm not going to keep going through this part.
It's a long
here.
article, yeah.
I think we hit the key points.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it's just hypocrisy left and right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't just happen with the left; it happens with the right as well. But predominantly, from what we always see, it's always coming out of the far left.
Yeah, we talk about liberalism has a particular set of beliefs that we may not agree with, but there are many rational liberals. When we talk about the left, we're talking about an extreme group of people that are bad, and there are extreme right people that are bad. But it seems like leftists and extreme ideology is pushing for restriction of speech, quickly labeling people, us versus them mentality. If you want to get a resolution over something, pushing for us versus them mentality is the greatest way to destroy that. And Fox News does it to a certain degree. CNN does it to a degree. MSNBC. Like, that's the kind of language you really
their moneymaker.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're talking about if it leads, it bleeds. Like, they want that us versus them mentality, the hero versus the villains. Like, that sells things. But as a society trying to be united, it's very destructive.
Well, it's good.
Yeah, they're just like they're entertainment, channels now. That's all they're doing. I mean, news, facts.
No, okay, so I forget who said that. They're content creators.
Yeah.
100% they're content creators.
Absolutely.
There are a few here and there that are actual journalists, right? You have a lot of these war correspondents. Those are journalists. They're out there in the crap, getting their butts handed to them. And a lot of times they're paying for that stuff themselves.
Yeah.
Those are journalists, Glen Greenwald, he's a journalist, right?
Matt Taibbi,
yeah. It's like, what's her name that burned down the New York Times when she left? I
don't remember her name. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she's liberal. She's gay, and she writes a lot of stuff I agree with, right? Because she's logical.
Yeah, but I mean, content creators, all they care about is ratings, right?
Well, yeah, you can't do basic homework anymore. I mean, I went on Google search and I pulled this stuff up. Like, okay, so did you guys see that the FBI released their new crime statistics for 2019?
Ooh, let's go over that.
So this is easily Googleable, right? So again, the media fanning the flame of derision. They're always pitting one against the other. You notice how they don't really pit whites against Hispanics too much? It's always whites against blacks. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
The most stuff I've seen, it's always whites against blacks. It's never Hispanics against whites or Asians against blacks or
because historically those are the polarizing opposites, right?
Sure.
So I think that's why. I mean, they're both of those identities have such history that they have to polarize them even further, right?
There was the misguided attempt to do the Asian crime thing, which they didn't really talk about why it was happening, just that it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when basic statistics prove that you are far more likely to be assaulted, killed by someone who looks exactly like you.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there's this fear. They have to fan this flame of fear. Now, is it justified? Absolutely not. Are there cases? Yes, there are cases. You can point to them. You can find them. Absolutely. Right. But the statistics don't bear out the fear that these people are pushing. Okay. So this is the new 2019 crime statistic that the FBI just released. Now, I am not a big fan of the FBI. The FBI has recently, they've hurt themselves a lot. They've damaged themselves.
Complete garbage.
They have ruined their reputation, and good luck repairing it because they politicize themselves in a sense. However, when it comes to statistics, I tend to lean towards, truth in a sense, because it's like, what reason would you really have to push a false narrative in a statistic? Okay. So in here, they talk about specifically the race of victims and homicides, okay? So with this one, again, it's white and black, right? Mm-hmm. On here, they talk about the total homicides that whites have committed, right? 3,299 total homicides committed by white people. Of those committed, 2,594 were committed against other whites. 566 were committed against black or African Americans. And then a small number, 56 other and 83 unknown. For black and African Americans, a total of 2,906 homicides were committed in 2019. Of those black African Americans, 2,906 homicides, 2,574 were committed against other blacks or African Americans. Against whites, 246. It's 13% of the population. There's a big disparity there, right? Disparity there. You can't sit there and say, when you have a statistic, when you have facts in front of you, you can't sit there and tell me, you cannot lie to me and sit there and say that the person you need to worry about is someone that looks like me. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not saying that those people don't exist. They do. There are bastards. This guy, he proves that there are bastards out there, but he's a bastard. He does not stand for all whites. Neither does that guy in the subway stand for all blacks.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, it comes down to like what Ben Shapiro said, right? It's all about culture, not about race, right? I mean, they're just things culturally that perpetuate these things that, I mean, facts are facts, Well, you can't deny those things.
What do we get down to too, right? We talked about this in the show. That you are seeing the destruction of the family. You are seeing the secularization of society, right? As you take God away from family, you're going to see this stuff start to fall apart. Thomas Sowell has talked about this many times. The black family, all the way up until the 60s, were more dual parent households married than whites up until the 1960s. Even through slavery, more of them were married than whites. Mm-hmm. You're seeing the destruction and ripping apart of the nuclear family. You're seeing God taking out of these things. When God is in the family, when there's two parents in the household that are educating children, that are teaching kids to be a good part of society, you're not going to see this stuff as much, right? Mm-hmm. I remember growing up, my dad, I got brought home by the cops one time.
Oh, man.
You didn't sit down right for a week, huh?
First of all, it kind of was my fault. However, I didn't need to be brought home by the cop. The cop just was like, "Hey, let me take you home." I was like, "No, absolutely not." No. And I got my butt handed to me when I got home. Okay, because my dad always taught me. He's like, if you do anything wrong, if the cops ever pick you up, I'm leaving you in jail. He's like, you own it, right?
Yep. Don't put yourself in that position.
There's only a certain period of time that I had as a kid where my dad could teach me well, right, and raise me right. Luckily, he did. Same thing with my siblings, right? But you see a lot of these. So, do you know in prison, they asked them, they looked at the statistics of how many prisoners send Mother's Day cards, and you know how many of them it is?
Like almost all of them?
Exactly. You know how many send out Father's Day cards?
Like none.
None.
Like 1% maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, those are shocking facts for you, right? But I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah, I think about the story of Ben Carson. You read his book, Gifted Hands. Yeah. He was raised in a household by one mother, and she had her and her brother write book reports every week, every month, and she would mark them up and give them to him like, this was a good book report.
I remember this story.
She was illiterate. Yeah. She couldn't read any of their book reports. She just made random markings and handed back. But she didn't want her kids to grow up like her. And you ask Ben Carson now, 30 years old, head of the neurological surgeon division at Johns Hopkins. He wasn't in it. He was the head of the department at 30. Unheard of among doctors. And even he's like, yeah, I was raised by a single mother, but I was the exception. You want more people to turn out like me. You want to help the Black community. Sons need mentorships. They need fathers. It's so much easier for families to have a mother and father in the household. You can look at any statistic. Asians perform better than whites in terms of low crime rate, success, and lower divorce rate. More of the father-mother nuclear family. They rank higher that and lower in everything else, just like it's across all cultures and all races. The family is the most central unit of society. If you want your society to be strong and successful, you need a strong family. As a family deteriorates, so does society.
But have you guys seen, like, during the last 10 years, the narrative of the Asian community being associated with the left has been completely dropped because they just don't fall within their narrative anymore?
Cubans.
Yep.
Cubans are no longer identified on the census as Hispanic. They're not white.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just...
Because they overwhelmingly vote Republican, right? Which... We've talked about this too. It's like it's two sides of the same coin. You know, it's like it's more ideologies, right? You come down to, are you of a liberal or leftist ideology or of the right? Now you see that Overton window shift, and what did we see that happen with Elon Musk? He's like, I was on the left. I was of the left. He's like, I am still a liberal. But now, because he says he uses the word freedom of speech, now they identify him as being on the right. It's not fair.
Yeah.
Tim Pool, same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, he has some serious, like, nationalistic views, man.
There's a lot of things I disagree with Tim Pool with.
Yeah, I mean, but he keeps it real. At least he's like, he's like, I see the left keep moving left, and I stay where I'm at. But because I stay where I'm at, the window shifts, and now I'm on the right.
Yeah.
You know, and they call him a white nationalist all the time now. A radical.
Well, I had a frat brother of mine. We were kind of talking about this a little bit, just a little chat back and forth. And he's all like, well, the right's moving to the right too. And I go, look at the right today and judge it with the right 50 years ago. Nowhere near as conservative as it used to be. Not even close.
If anything, the right's moving more left or center.
You have more people on the right who support abortion now.
Yeah.
That was unheard of. Even Obama and Clinton were not necessarily against, but they advocated for safe, legal, and rare. Mm-hmm. They were both against gay marriage. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, so was Biden.
Yeah.
At once upon a time. I mean, you see Mitt Romney. I mean, that dude's just like completely like left, Democratic now. At least what he's politically believes now. But if you look at him, like, let's say 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. When he was running for president, things like that, like completely different views.
Yeah.
So my favorite aspect of this, of their unwillingness to view people even by their own defined terms of where their political leanings was, when Joe Rogan was on the scene and they're talking about their guests, how he overwhelmingly has right-wing people on there, and right-wing guests involved Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Russell Brand, Sam Harris, Joe Rogan himself. All these people are liberal.
They were all Bernie supporters.
They were all Bernie supporters, every single one of them. And they were labeled right-wing? Like, what?
Well, the reason they're the predominant people on their shows is because none of the far left people want to go on these shows and debate, because once they go through cross-examination on these ideas about facts, their narrative completely falls apart. And they know they can't stand up to that, right?
They can't get out of their echo chamber.
Exactly. They cannot stand people actually presenting facts to what their opinion is, because it's their opinion and they're allowed to have their opinion. But when confronted with facts, then their opinion becomes a lie.
Well, that's what we hear a lot, right? Well, this is the discussion we need to have, whether it's gun control, racism, whatever it is. But then when you want to sit down and have a discussion, or whoever wants to have a debate, nope, got to be shout down. You saw how many times conservatives go to colleges to go to speak to college campuses, and they shut it down. I've never seen a college campus get shut down when someone on the left goes to a college campus to speak, nor should they be.
Yep.
Right?
Nor have I seen one of the reported racial graffitis or anything at all these college campuses that are reported actually be perpetrated by a white nationalist or supremacist. It's always done by, Well,
they always hide it too. So like there was at Emory, there was one where they were showing swastikas, they were getting put up, and it comes to find out it was a black student.
Exactly.
There was the one. It was a girl. Same thing. She was writing Nazi stuff in the bathroom. Turned out it was a girl. It was a black female. Now,
or the N-word on the outside of a building or something. It was the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. But going back to the aspect of, okay, well, these are discussions we need to have. Okay, well, then let's have healthy debate. You had Ben Shapiro, who challenged AOC to debate, and in fact offered her $10,000 to any charity of her choice to sit down and have a debate with him, and she refused, and she said that's actually a dog whistle. You just want to date me.
Oh my!
It's still isn't that offer still on the table or something like that? He has an open invitation.
$10,000 to any charity of her choice. All you got to do is sit down with him. But you see Crowder go out all the time, and he has these long form conversations with people on the streets, and they're really good. And he actually gets people to sit down with him with differing opinions, and they have a discussion. And that's what you should have. Not to shout somebody down. If you're on the left and you believe in abortion, I'm not going to go out and shout you down.
Yeah.
It's like, let's sit down and have a conversation.
I think leftists are okay with having the conversation when it's in private, but when they know it's going to be recorded and put online, as soon as their ideology, their group, their tribe sees them actually conversing with somebody on the opposite side, they become ostracized, right? And they don't want that. That's the whole thing. Again, it comes back to the culture of it, right? They're being accepted as they are right now, being part of that group. But as soon as they try to meet in the middle and talk about things, then oh, we can't have that. You're too dangerous for us now. Be gone. So,
well, you see that what is it? Project Veritas caught that guy from Twitter that had a conversation with him, and he was talking about how communist the people in Twitter actually are.
Just so effing commies. Yeah.
I thought it was funny though, because Crowder was he's like, look, man, he's like, let me just give you help. Let me give you a little bit of help. If a hot chick comes to ask you out, he's like, she's trying to hook you, dude. She's trying to bait you.
It was hilarious. Yeah.
You're not going to pull somebody like her to a date. I'm sorry. And then she's asking for your tax return, and you're giving it to her. Like, what are you doing? But what is Project Veritas doing? Journalism.
Yeah.
Right. They're doing exactly what journalists used to do. Right.
Oh man.
How did they get Watergate?
Oh, well, the same way.
They did journalism, right? They went down and they did hard work, right? I'm just saying.
Man, they hate Veritas so bad. But Veritas doesn't just do it to the left. They've done it to Fox News. They do it to everybody. They don't even care.
Well, then they keep labeling James O'Keefe as a Republican right-wing shill, and never one time has he ever divulged his political affiliations. Nope. Never. Same thing with Megyn Kelly. Yep. She's never divulged her political, and she even said it. She's like, I'm a journalist. You're not supposed to know what my political affiliation is. I'm supposed to give you the facts, and that is it. Yep. And that's what James O'Keefe does too, right? And you see all these retractors that major news publications have to do constantly, because he's suing the crap out of them for publishing lies, and they keep getting caught. Yeah,
you think they'd get it by now, but I mean, he's still getting these crazy scoops. I think one's about to drop too, another one that they have from Twitter employees. But
that guy loves to keep busy. I can't imagine.
I just remember him when he started out as a pimp. Do you remember that? Yeah. The abortion clinic?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's how he got started, man.
Yeah, he did a video. He dressed up like a pimp, and
he went in with what's her name?
Oh my gosh, that was James O'Keefe.
He did a partnership with a certain journalist chick or something.
I can't remember. And so the whole thing was him. He's bringing in his hooker
to get an abortion. Yeah, and they go through all the process. They record it and everything. Everyone was like, I think it was the first time somebody did that to Planned Parenthood, right?
Yeah,
and everyone was like, whoa.
Well, you remember Crowder did it. Crowder went to an abortion clinic, and he told them he is a man. Like he's not a trans man. He is an actual man, but he's pregnant. And they're like, okay, we're gonna go through the. It's like, what are you guys thinking?
Like, I was born a biological man. I identify as a woman. I believe I'm pregnant because I tested positive, which is an indicator of testicular cancer.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And these people at the abortion clinic were like, okay, well, I guess you are pregnant. They didn't bother. The doctor who talked to him never bothered to say, hey, you should probably get this checked out because given your biology, this could be cancer.
Because it's all about money, man. That's all they care about.
Have you seen James O'Keefe too? He busted one guy who was trying to infiltrate Project Veritas, and he allowed it to happen.
Oh, I didn't see that.
He knew this person was infiltrating Project Veritas, and he allowed him to happen because he's all like, I'm not dirty.
Yeah, he says that he's. I don't think they've ever had any scoop on Project Veritas at all because he's like we run a tight ship.
Didn't the FBI get smacked down for doing his home raid?
Oh yeah, dude. His
home raid, and then they released his personal information on his cell phone to the New York Times because guess what? He was suing the New York Times. And they leaked they just leaked the information.
And then the New York Times took his personal correspondence with his lawyer, which the FBI leaked to him, and published it. It's like
that's a win for that attorney, man. He's like, this is a win all day long,
man. Yeah,
but it's just for me going back to what we started with, right? This just comes down to if you're gonna do journalism, if you're gonna report on something, have some integrity, for crying out loud. Speak the truth. All right. Wait for your opinions, on anything else until all the facts come out, and then go ahead. But if you have an opinion, that's fine, but state it as this is my opinion. That's okay. You can do that. I even think Roger Cronkite used to do that. He would sit there and he'd give you the whole story, and he's all like, in my opinion, I think blah, blah, blah.
Well, yeah, I mean, ever since the Project Veritas lawsuits, I mean, all those major publications are finally putting opinion piece, right, at a certain point in the articles, because that's what they are, opinions, unless they give an actual factual
content creators.
Content creators.
Oh, who's that? Remember that kid, Nick Sandman?
Oh yeah.
I wish he wouldn't have settled. I wish because he sued MSNBC, he sued CNN, he sued ABC, he sued some private journalists, and apparently it's like in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've had to settle.
Yeah, they settled, but I mean, if think about it from his perspective and his family's, right? It's like they're never going to see that kind of money ever again. But it's like he wasn't a political warrior, right, or whatever.
No, he's a kid.
Call him. He's a kid, so it's like. Does he really want to go through that entire thing for decades? Because that could drag on for decades.
Yeah, and trials are
expensive,
stressful, expensive, and at the end of a very long process. Things usually get figured out in pre-discovery or in hearings before the trial ever happens.
See, but if I understand, to protect the First Amendment, to protect journalists, there has to be this really hard thing to prove libel, right?
Yeah.
But the way things are going now, it's like maybe we should need to revisit that a little bit. I'm okay with you espousing your opinion if you state that it's your opinion. But if you sit there and you libel somebody, right? You falsely accuse them of something, you should be sued. And because you can be sued, then you're going to be careful what you're going to say, and you're going to make sure that whatever you say is factual based.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what James O'Keefe said, where he's like, we just got to keep suing people.
Yeah.
Got to keep suing these publications until they get it. But
again, this is as much garbage as those sneakers. So, yeah. But hopefully by listening to the show, that that I challenge you that no matter what you hear, whether it's from the right or the left, I challenge you to do your own homework first. Do not trust who you listen to. Do not trust us. Do your homework. Go do some basic research. Go dig through some stuff. Look on the right and on the left. Once you do that, and you can come to a conclusion, because you're an adult.
Yep.
You can figure it out. You're a big boy and a big girl. You'll figure it out.
You got Google.
Yeah. Then I'm okay with that. As long as you sit there and you do what Thomas Sowell always says, right? Show me the evidence.
Or as Larry Ellis says, show me the money.
Yeah. Or as we like to say, show me the receipts.
Give us receipts, because we bring them every day.
Yep. So as always, we thank you guys for joining with us. Make sure you like the show, comment on the show, subscribe, share us with some friends. And Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, no, just want to thank everybody for still tuning into us. We try to get you guys good content as much as we can, and we're just always super thankful for you guys. And we'll see you guys next week. You got anything else, Mike?
All the savages out there, stay saintly.